Members of the clergy, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. We warmly welcome you to the inaugural ceremony of the 17th Conference on Postgraduate Research, the International Postgraduate Research Conference, Iprc 2016, organized by the Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. This is a momentous occasion as it is the 17th consecutive conference on postgraduate research organized for the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the University of Kelaniya and is one of the largest conferences of the university this year, consisting of nearly 250 research presentations. And so, we are indeed honored by your presence with us today.
ආයුබෝවන් සුබෝදෑසනක් හැමදෙනාටම කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලීය පශ්චාත්තුපාදී අධ්‍යයන පීඨය මගින් 17 වෙනි වරටත් අඛණ්ඩව පවත්වනු ලබන පශ්චාත්තුපාදී පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදය 2016 ඒ වෙනුවෙන් අපගේ ගෞරවනීය ආරාධනය ලැබ මෙම ස්ථානයට පැමිණි ඔබ සියලු දෙනාම ඊටාම ආදරයෙන් ගෞරවයෙන් අපි පිළිගනු ලබනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ සමාජීය විද්‍යාපීඨය මානව ශාස්ත්‍ර පීඨය වාණිජ්‍ය හා කළමනාකරණ පීඨය විද්‍යාපීඨය වගේම වෛද්‍ය පීඨය තුල ක්‍රියාත්මක විෂය ධාරාවන් සියල්ල ඒ සියල්ලෙහි සහයෝගීතාව සහිතව නිර්මාණශීලී වූත් නව්‍ය වූත් ස්ථාවරයක් සමාජය තුල ගොඩනැංවීමයි මෙවර ජාත්‍යන්තර පශ්චාත්තුපාදී පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදය IPRC 2016 மூலிக அபிப்பிராய பவட்ட பத்வன்னே
அனைவருக்கும் இந்நேர காலை வணக்கம். களனி பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் பட்டப்படிப்புகள் பீடத்தினுடைய 17வது பட்டப்படிப்புகள் ஆய்வு மாநாடு சர்வதேச பட்டப்படிப்புகள் ஆய்வு மாநாடு 2016க்கு உங்கள் அனைவரையும் அன்புடன் வரவேற்பதில் பெருமகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றோம். இன்றும் நாளையும் நடைபெறவுள்ள இந்த ஆய்வு மாநாட்டில் 250க்கும் அதிகமான ஆய்வு அறிக்கைகள் சமர்ப்பிக்கப்பட உள்ளது என்பதனை மிகவும் மகிழ்ச்சியோடு அறியத் தருகின்றோம்.
Without further ado, I wish to invite our dignitaries to participate in the tradition of lighting the oil lamp. I call upon Chief Guest of IPRC 2016, Senior Professor Sunanda Madhuma Bandara, Vice Chancellor, University of Kelaniya, Keynote Speaker of the conference, Professor Joseph Mulla, University of Southern Queensland, Australia, Guest of Honour, Professor Dennis Hardy, Vice Chancellor, University of Seychelles, Special Guest of the conference, Senior Professor M.J.S. Wijeratna, Chairman, Research Council, University of Kelaniya, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor A.H.M.H. Aberatna, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Professor D.M. Semasingha, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Dean, Faculty of Science, Professor Kapila Senaviratna, Chair, International Postgraduate Research Conference 2016, and Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies, Professor Arya Ratna Jayamaha, Director, Center for Distance and Continuing Education, and Chief Editor of IPRC 2016, Professor P.M.C. Tilakaratna, Registrar, Mr. W.M.K. Karunaratna, Librarian, Mr. L.A. Jayatissa, Bursa, Ms. U.T.M.I.D. Thennakoon, Assistant Registrar, Faculty of Graduate Studies, Ms. H.N.K. Fernando, and I also like to invite a presenter of IPRC 2016 to light the oil lamp.
ජාත්‍යන්තර පශ්චාත්තුපාදී පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදය 2016 චිරාගත සම්ප්‍රදායානුකූලව ආරම්භ කරමින් மங்கள பகன் தல்வன அவஸ்தாව.
அடுத்து ஆய்வு மாநாட்டிற்கு வருகை தந்துள்ள எமது அதிதிகளை மங்கள விளக்கேற்றி இந்நிகழ்வினை ஆரம்பித்து வைக்குமாறு மிகவும் பணிவுடன் வரவேற்கின்றோம்.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the university anthem.
සියලු දෙනාම නැගී සිටමු කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ගීතය වෙනුවෙන්.
அடுத்ததாக பல்கலைக்கழக கீதம் இசைக்கப்பட உள்ளது. அனைவரையும் எழுந்து நிற்குமாறு அன்போடு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
Thank you. We now proceed to a significant moment in the inaugural ceremony. I am honored to invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor Sunanda Madhuma Bandara, to declare open the 17th Conference on Postgraduate Research, the International Postgraduate Research Conference, Iprc 2016, organized by the Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka.
ජාත්‍යන්තර පශ්චාත්තුපාධි පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදය 2016 කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ උපකුලපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ මහාචාර්ය සුනන්ද මද්දුම් බණ්ඩාර මැතිතුමන් අතින් දැන් නිල වශයෙන් ආරම්භ කරන අවස්ථාව.
மாறும் ஒத்துழைப்பு, படைப்பாற்றல், புதுமை மற்றும் நிலைப்புத்தன்மை என்ற தொனிப்பொருளில் இவ்வருடம் நடைபெறுகின்ற 17வது பட்டப்படிப்புகள் பீடத்தினுடைய ஆய்வு மாநாட்டை வைபவ ரீதியாக ஆரம்பித்து வைக்கும்படியாக எமது பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் துணைவேந்தர் சிரேஷ்ட பேராசிரியர் சுனந்த மத்துவ பண்டார அவர்களை அன்போடு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
The Faculty of Graduate Studies warmly welcomes all of you to IPRC 2016, the 17th Postgraduate Research Conference organized by the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. In keeping with the multidisciplinary ethos that the FGS has nurtured since its inception, IPRC 2016 brings together leading-edge scholarship from a broad range of disciplines, including commerce and management, social sciences, medicine, science, humanities, computing and technology. One of the key aims of this year's conference is to transcend traditional boundaries of knowledge dissemination through collaboration, combining experience, interdisciplinarity, commitment, and experiential learning. IPRC is driven by the core values of change, self-reflexivity, sustainability, innovation, creativity, synthesis, and difference. This is yet another groundbreaking mission to strengthen the research culture in Sri Lanka, particularly by empowering the younger generation of Sri Lankan scholars engaged in postgraduate research. In addition, this year's conference features research conducted by scholars affiliated to many other prestigious institutions in Sri Lanka and from around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you agree that this documentary powerfully captured the vision of this institution and the spirit of IPRC 2016 in striving towards dynamic collaborations, creativity, innovation, and stability. I now wish to invite the chair of the International Postgraduate Research Conference 2016, who has played a pivotal role in spearheading the organization of this conference. And so, I call upon the chair of IPRC 2016, Professor Aryaratna Jayamaha, to welcome the gathering.
ජාත්‍යන්තර පශ්චාත්තුපාදී පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදය 2016 එවෙනුවෙන් ඔබ සියලුම දෙනා මේ අවස්ථාවට පිළිගැනීම සඳහා මා ආරාධනය කර සිටිනවා. පශ්චාත්තුපාදී අධ්‍යයන පීඨයේ පීඨාධිපති මහාචාර්ය ආර්යරත්න ජයමහ මහතාට.
சர்வதேச பட்டப்படிப்புகள் ஆராய்ச்சி மாநாட்டின் தலைவரும் பட்டப்படிப்புகள் பீடத்தினுடைய பீடாதிபதியுமான பேராசிரியர் ஆரியரத்ன ஜெயமகா அவர்களை இந்நிகழ்வின் வரவேற்புரையினை நிகழ்த்துமாறு அன்போடு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
Good morning to you all, Venerable Sirs, Chief Guest of the conference, Senior Professor Sunanda Madhu Bandara, Vice Chancellor of Kelaniya University. Today's keynote speaker, Professor Joseph Moula from University of Southern Queensland, Australia. And guest of honor, Professor Dennis Hardy, Vice Chancellor of University of Seychelles. And special guest of the conference, Senior Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratne, Chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya. Dean, Faculty of Science, Professor Kapila Senaviratne. Dean, Social Science, Professor H.M.H. Abhiratne. Dean, Medicine, Professor Nilanthi De Silva. Director, CDC and Chief Editor of that Iprc conference today, Professor P.M.C. Tilakaratne. Professors and directors, librarian and heads of the department and other academic staff, registrars and other non-academic staff members, distinguished delegates, dear presenters, ladies and gentlemen. As the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Chair of the Iprc conference, I warmly welcome all of you to the 17th Conference on Postgraduate Studies, Iprc 2016. At present, there's a growing concern in the dissemination of knowledge through academic conferences in Sri Lanka. In this respect, this annual conference organized by the FGS, now it's the 17th consecutive year, remains a pioneering conference that has established a strong tradition of research at the University of Kelaniya. We remember that FGS commenced this conference, postgraduate research conference, in the year 1999, I remember, and organized it at an international level in the year 2015. At present, this annual conference remains a favorite venue for local and international scholars to exchange their research and ideas. We know that the purpose of this research conference is to inspire, recognize, and support research in multidisciplinary fields such as business management, economics, finance, information technology, medicine, languages, literature, education, and science. Hence, this year's conference focuses on collaboration and innovation, emphasizing the importance of bringing together research from diverse fields to a common platform to produce interdisciplinary research that cut across the disciplinary boundaries. Collaboration and collaborative research activities have become the rare resource in the competitive and corporate academic culture. They remain a form of collective innovation where stability arises not from mere agreement, but the sustained participation in research and dialogue engaging with differences. This emerging trend, our research culture, is a reflection of the new interest in collaborative and collective activity outside the university, particularly in the areas of community action and organizing. Given this renowned interest in collaboration that lead the innovation and stability, we believe that collaboration in the field of research can produce new knowledge and sustainability in the field of knowledge production. This year, as you all know, We accepted 243 papers for this conference from different fields. Authors will present 18 papers from commerce and management, 29 from science, 21 papers from computing and technology, 20 from medicine, 84 papers from the humanities, and 71 from economics, sociology, and history in the social sciences. In addition, 15 papers will be presented as a post-representation. All these papers will be presented in 35 panels in 5 sessions in this conference today and tomorrow. As you all know, organizing this type of handling papers and organizing the conference of this magnitude in quite difficult task. Therefore, this year, the conference was organized using an online conference management platform sponsored by Microsoft Research free of charge. That facilitated a smooth organizing process and better data management in registration, reviewing, and overall conference management. You could see that how we manage our 243 papers by submitting online and reviewing process all through the management system. This all we got from the Microsoft free of charge. I want to mention. The all reviewing process and submitting the papers through this system. And dear sirs, ladies and gentlemen, I warmly welcome the chief guest of this Iprc conference, Senior Professor Sunanda Madhum Bandara, Vice Chancellor of our university. Thank you very much, sir, for your encouragement and providing all facilities and gracing the occasion. Thank you very much, sir. Also, I warmly welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Joseph Mula from Australia, and nowadays is serving an adjunct professor in Accounting and Informatics, School of Public Finance and Taxation, University of Shogun University, Economics and Law, Wuhan, China. So we hope that you can share with us for your 40 years experience in consultant, researcher, and an academia in Australia, as well as the other countries. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and for participating in this conference. We hope you will enjoy your stay in Sri Lanka a few days. And also, I warmly welcome our guest of honor in this conference, Professor Dennis Hardy, Vice Chancellor, University of Seychelles Island. Sir, your participation and thought will be very much appreciated. And also, I warmly welcome our special guest of the conference, Senior Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratne, Chairman of the Research Council. We always appreciate the encouragement you extend to build up the research culture in the University of Kelaniya. And we thank for your participation in this event. This morning, we also look forward to hearing your valuable thoughts, sir. I also welcome all deans of the faculties are here, professors, heads of the departments, academic staff, research presenters, registrars, and academic staff and non-academic members participating in this event today and extending your support to success the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, as we as academics are very much concerned about the research output of our peers, and we always encourage them to publish their findings in the research journal. There's no doubt that this is a very good opportunity for academics and international scholars to share their knowledge with international scholars in their field, publish their findings. I hope this conference will stimulate future collaborative interventions in the field of interdisciplinary research in Sri Lanka. I wish all the very best for your participants, and thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I wish to invite the chief guest, Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, who has been instrumental in developing the research activities of the university and whose support and encouragement has been invaluable in ensuring the success of this conference. Ladies and gentlemen,
17 වෙනි පශ්චාත්තුපාදී පර්යේෂණ පරිසංවාදයේ සමාරම්භක උළෙලා ආමන්ත්‍රණය කිරීම සඳහා අපි තාම ගෞරවයෙන් ආරාධනය කර සිටිනවා කෙලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ උපකුලපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ මහාචාර්ය සුනන්ද මද්දුම් බණ්ඩාර මැතිතුමනි ඔබතුමන්ට
சர்வதேச பட்டப்படிப்புகள் பீடத்தினுடைய ஆய்வு மாநாட்டின் பிரதம விருந்தினரும் எமது பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் துணைவேந்தருமான சிரேஷ்ட பேராசிரியர் சுனந்த மத்தும பண்டார் அவர்களை உரையாற்றும்படி அழைக்கின்றோம்.
ladies and gentlemen, the profile of Senior Professor Sunanda Madhum Bandara, Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya.
Professor Sunanda Madhuma Bandara, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, is a senior professor in the Department of Economics at the University of Kelaniya. Senior Professor Madhuma Bandara graduated with an honours degree in economics from the University of Kelaniya and obtained his postgraduate qualifications from the Shiga University, Nagoya University, and Osaka Foreign Languages University in Japan. He was the Director General, Development and Communication of the Ministry of Economic Development for the last several years. He has held several administrative positions in the university, including the head of Department of Economics, and was Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences from 2002 to 2010 at the University of Kelaniya. He has also served as the Director of the Department of Information. Senior Professor Madhuma Bandara has a distinguished record of serving as a member of the Presidential Task Force on Media as the Chief Counselor for Youth Rehabilitation at the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Director of the National Field Corporation, and the Director of the National Human Resources Development Council. He has been a consultant to the World Bank City Development Program and also a consultant to the Ministry of Policy Planning and Implementation.
Good morning to you all, Venerable Mahasangha, Professor Joseph Mulla, keynote speaker, Professor Nilisan Hartley, guest of honor, Senior Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratna, special guest of the conference, German Research Council, University of Kelaniya, Professor Nilan Sisilla, Dean Medical Faculty of Medicine, Professor Kapila Sriratna, Dean of Science, Professor Aryaratna Jayamaha, Dean of the Faculty of Postgraduate Studies, Mr. W.M. Karunaratna, Registrar, professors, head of the departments and other academic staff, librarian, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be invited as the chief guest of the Iprc 2016 International Postgraduate research conference organized by the Faculty of Graduate Studies of the university. As a time when Sri Lanka is moving towards becoming a knowledge hub, conferences that focus on creativity and collaboration are a critical contribution to the intellectual culture of the country. I congratulate the Faculty of Graduate Studies for organizing this conference now for the 17th consecutive year, taking the lead in nurturing a research culture at the university. I believe that this conference is an important link for disseminating knowledge nationally and internationally. The University of Kelaniya has focused on making its presence in the international research culture by organizing various conferences and symposia for the graduates, undergraduates, and the wider academic world inside and outside the university. The university treats this as a crucial priority since research and the production of knowledge constitute an important part of the contribution that the public higher educational institution must make to national development. As such, conferences such as these that maintain the tradition of interdisciplinary research play a significant role in the university's commitment to national interest. I would like to thank and congratulate the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies, Professor Aryaratna Jayamahan, the organizing committee, and the supporting staff who organized this event. I would also like to thank the researchers, reviewers, editors, and other academics who contributed to sustaining the core values of the quality and innovation throughout this conference. I congratulate the organizers and the presenters of the Iprc 2016 and wish this research conference a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I kindly request that you remain on stage as I invite the chair of Iprc 2016, Professor Aryaratna Jayamahan, to present a token of appreciation to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor Sunanda Madhumbandara.
කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ උපකුලපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ මහාචාර්ය සුනන්ද මද්දුම්බණ්ඩාර මහතුමන් වෙත IPRC 2016 සමරු ඵලකය පිරිනැමෙන අවස්ථාව.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the address by the special guest of IPRC 2016, the chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor M.J.S. Wijeyaratna. The Research Council functions with the aim of developing a vibrant research culture and has contributed immensely in promoting innovation and excellence in research in the University of Kelaniya. Ladies and gentlemen, the profile of the chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya.
Professor M.J.S. Wijeyaratna is the Senior Professor and Chair of Zoology in the Department of Zoology and Environmental Management and the Chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya. He obtained his BSc Honours degree from the University of Kelaniya, MSc degree from the University of Michigan, USA, and PhD from the University of Kelaniya. He has been awarded Fulbright Scholarship by the US government, Fellowship of Conservation and Sustainable Development by the University of Michigan, USA, Prize for the Best Young Scientist in Biology in Sri Lanka by the Third World Academy of Sciences, and the CVCD Lifetime Award for the Most Outstanding Senior Researcher in Biology by the Committee of Vice Chancellors and Directors of Sri Lanka. He has also won presidential awards for research publication institutions in several years. Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratna has been the Dean of the Faculty of Science and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, and also the Chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors and Directors of Sri Lanka. He has served as a member of the governing boards of many national institutions in Sri Lanka. Currently, the Chairman of National Science and Technology Commission of Sri Lanka. He is a Fellow of the Institute of Biology and the National Academy of Sciences of Sri Lanka. Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratna has carried out a large amount of research and has published more than 90 research papers in peer-reviewed index journals and 12 textbooks.
කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ පර්යේෂණ සභාවේ සභාපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ මහාචාර්ය එම්.ජේ.එස්. විජේරත්න මහතාණනි, IPRC 2016 සමාරම්භක අවස්ථාව ආමන්ත්‍රණය කිරීම සඳහා ඔබතුමාට අපි ගෞරවයෙන් ආරාධනය කර සිටිනවා.
களனி பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் ஆராய்ச்சி கலாச்சாரத்தை வளர்ப்பதில் தனது சேவையை வழங்கி வரும் எமது இன்றைய நிகழ்வின் சிறப்பு விருந்தினராகிய சிரேஷ்ட பேராசிரியர் எம்.ஜே.எஸ். விஜயரத்ன தலைவர் பல்கலைக்கழக ஆய்வுக்குழு அவர்களை உரையாற்றும்படி அன்போடு அழைக்கின்றோம்.
Good morning to all of you, venerable sirs, our guest of honor, Professor Dennis Hardy, Vice Chancellor of the University of Seychelles, and also our keynote speaker, Professor Mula from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia, the Chairman of the IPRC, Professor Ariratna Jayamaha, the Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies, the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Professor Nilanthi Silva, Professor Kapila Senviratna, Dean Science, Librarian Mr. Jayamaha, Mr. Jayatissa, the administrative officers, all the academic staff members, non-academic staff members, and the presenters of this conference. I'm very thankful for inviting me for this occasion as the special guest to address you. I'm very thankful that the organizing committee has selected a very, very important theme for this conference today: dynamic collaborations, creativity, innovation, and stability. We know how these collaborations are important for the development of a country. Even in the past, when we look at the very famous innovations, many of those things are innovated by collaborative work. Very famous examples: the aeroplane by two people. And also we can give lot of examples. The Google, two people, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, like that. So, collaborations among researchers are very important in the present day context. Even today, when we look at our medical inventions, those are not actually done entirely by the medical personnel. The scientists in various fields, physicists, chemists, biologists, and a lot of people are involved in developing these medical innovations. For example, the medical robots, which are used by some countries even now, and which will come to our country also very soon. And here, Today we are talking about the sustainable development. I think all of you are aware of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals identified by the United Nations in September 2015. Now this sustainable development, in fact, are on 3 pillars. What are those? The social development, economic development, and also the environmental development. Now see, in order to achieve the sustainable development, we need the collaboration of all these groups. That cannot be done alone. And also, let's take some examples of this. For example, today we are talking very much about our environment. We are facing the problem of climate change and global warming. Due to global warming, there is this climate change. And we implement lot of activities, lot of research is being done. Whatever it is, this research we cannot do in isolation. In order to combat climate change, all these researchers should get together. I am very happy to say at this moment, the Kelaniya University is the first state university, first state green university, because we are very much concerned about our environment, not only within our university, but also within the entire country and also the global environment. Therefore, we have implemented a lot of activities with the participation of the entire university community. And also at this moment, I must say a few words about our national research agenda also. In the introduction, I think that you came to know about this National Science and Technology Commission of Sri Lanka, which is mandated by a parliamentary act to decide on the research areas that should be carried out in Sri Lanka for economic development and also for the welfare of our society. So that is not only the economic development, but the welfare of our people. Several fields have been identified. I will just list some of those: food, agriculture and nutrition, environment, energy, ICT and knowledge services are few to mention. But in all these fields, collaborative research is very much important, because in all these fields, we need policy formulation. Policy formulation cannot be done only by the scientists. Social scientists, economics, and all these people have to get involved. And also, not only that, not only policy formulation, pure and applied research in these fields should be carried out by everybody. Collaboration is needed. Then, promotion of innovations. Ultimately, we expect some sort of innovation, but I must say here that not from every research. Even in US, only 5% of research end up as innovations. Others, especially in the university, in addition to innovations, we have to promote the knowledge base of any society, any subject. So that research is also needed, but some should end up with innovations. So in order to promote innovation and also to market them, we need the help of a lot of others. Capacity building, use of ICT in all these fields. Not only that, popularization of these things. So we have to work together. The era of working in silos has ended. In order to work towards national development, towards economic improvement, and also for the benefit of the society, to improve the living conditions of our people. We must work together with collaborative research. So I am very thankful that the IPRC this year is identified this as their theme, very timely theme. I am sure that the research papers presented today at this symposium would be very useful for our concerted efforts towards development. So again, thanking you very much for giving me this opportunity to address you, and also wishing everybody a successful symposium which will provide you a lot of experience, lot of insight into your fields. I remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Wijeratna. I kindly request that you remain on stage as we invite the Chair of IPRC 2016, Professor Aryaratna Jayamaha, once again, to present a token of appreciation to the Chairman of the Research Council of the University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor M.J.S. Wijeratna.
කැලණිය විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ පර්යේෂණ සභාවේ සභාපති ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ මහාචාර්ය එම්.ජේ.එස්. විජේරත්න මැතිතුමන් වෙත IPRC 2016 සමරුව පිළිගැන්වෙන අවස්ථාව.
Thank you. We are deeply humbled by the presence of our esteemed guest of honor, Professor Dennis Hardy. We will now receive a glimpse into the extensive career and global experience of Professor Hardy, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Seychelles.
Dennis Hardy is Vice Chancellor of the University of the Seychelles. He graduated with a first degree in geography from the University of Exeter, UK, followed by an MA in Geography by Research. From there, he joined the Greater London Council and trained at the University College London as a professional urban planner. He later became a fellow of the Royal Town Planning Institute. After an initial period in planning practice, he moved into the academia. Following a varied program of teaching and research, he became increasingly involved in university management at Middlesex University, London. Then he went on to head the same university's campus in Dubai. He obtained his PhD through part-time research in urban planning history at the London School of Economics, and in 1988, he was awarded a professorship. He has 10 well-received books to his name, and research and writing remain important elements of his profile. He is presently writing a chapter on ocean governance for a book on the blue economy. Before coming to Seychelles, he completed a 3-year assignment in Australia comprising advice on a new town project in South Australia and leading a private college in Adelaide. He was formerly president of the International Communal Studies Association and is currently a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts.
On that note, I wish to call upon Professor Hardy, Vice Chancellor of the University of Seychelles, to share his thoughts with the gathering.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for that introduction. I'm very honored to be here, to be invited, and perhaps I should just explain a little bit of background about that. I come from Seychelles, and people often very politely say, oh yes, and then but a lot of people don't know where it is, so you can be excused for that. It's a very small nation in the middle of the Indian Ocean. If you were to jump in the sea here and swim just southwest, it's to the west, and if you're not eaten by sharks, you would get there, but it's a long swim. It actually takes 4.5 hours by plane. So there's a lot of ocean between Sri Lanka and Seychelles. The nation itself consists of more than 100 islands, but only about 90,000 people. So a tiny, tiny nation. And the university was founded in 2009 to provide higher education opportunities for young people on the islands. So very new, by your standards, very small. I'm very honored to be invited here, and I think that stems from a gathering that we had in Seychelles in July this year, and I have to acknowledge the enthusiastic support of one of your alumni, who is now the High Commissioner in Seychelles, the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Tikiri. He's been a moving force in this, and we met many people, including your Chief Librarian, Mr. Jayatissa, who has also been very helpful in arranging this visit. So that's a little bit of background. And let me get on to the presentation itself. You'll see that the title of this presentation is Research in the Golden Age. And the important signifier there is a question mark, because there are two questions really. One, do we live in the Golden Age? And secondly, whether or not we do, what are the implications for research? So what I've chosen is a topic which acknowledges that you are experts in many different areas, but this is about the one thing we have in common, which is about the research process. So let us look at the first slide. My thesis is that when we sit down and do our research, we don't do it in a vacuum. We do it by what is happening around us. The theme of the conference itself on dynamic collaborations and change and innovation really is loaded with values that we do live in a changing world, and our research is very much about meeting the challenges that surround us. So this is the first thing, and what I'm saying is we can interpret what is happening around us in one of two ways. We can either do it in a fairly gloomy way and say that glass is half empty, or we can be very positive and say that glass is half full. And the way we do it, whether we're optimistic or pessimistic, will affect many aspects of research. So let us just focus on the cup is half empty, if you like, the pessimistic view. And there are good grounds for doing that, because I'm sure, I didn't have time this morning to pick up the local or today's newspaper, but I'm sure that the newspaper would be filled with its usual litany of woes and problems and terrible things happening, because that really is the essence of the day's news. And I think we can actually crowd our minds with this problem-filled view of the world. Prepare for the end of the world. That is not an unusual way of looking at it. Now, what I'm saying here is if we start off like that, then it's quite likely that we will emerge from our research with negative outcomes. The possibility of improvement often doesn't occur to people. They will dwell on the problems. It's very problem-centered. Nothing wrong with being problem-centered, but if it affects the outcome of the research, then that can be significant. Now, I understand why people would start from that position. All around us, there are terrible things happening. Climate change can be framed in different ways. Certainly, if you live in the Maldives, and to some extent if you live in Seychelles, it's not good news. Rising sea level will create, in the case of Maldives, probably existential problems. So I don't underestimate any of this. And we can see visuals, we can read news of climate change. So if you undertake research on climate change, you see it as being the most damaging, the most threatening issue of our times. A lot depends on where you live, of course. If you live in the Arctic Circle, you might be cheered up because instead of the barren, snowy waste, you might look forward one day, probably not in the lifetime of the people who are there, to being able to grow crops because the temperature is likely to rise and the ice will melt. But it does depend on perspective. Sorry, this seems to have got stuck. If there's someone... Okay. Likewise, we see around us too many instances of pollution, whether we're sitting in traffic or we're seeing factories and power stations belching out their smoke, and we see garbage strewn across the beaches or in rivers. There's enough to make us very, very concerned, and rightly so. Sorry, I'm having problems with this. There we are. And we don't know, do we? We don't know what the effects of the political change in America will be. But people were initially very concerned. They were keeping their children home from school because everybody was crying, and they, you know, if you go back to that first slide, the end of the world is nigh. But, you know, people who are intelligent researchers will take perhaps a more balanced view of this and try to look at what the checks and balances in American political life really are. Whoops, now it either works very well. Conventional wisdom then would say the world is in a mess. If you speak to most people, and there was a little survey in the United Kingdom, I'm not sure how scientific it was, a journalist survey about whether people think the world was improving, and only 5% of the population thought that it was. Because all of the things that we see on a day-by-day basis would suggest that the world is indeed in a mess. So, the danger is that research outcomes will be programmed. They'll be pre-programmed before you start. I've spoken to young researchers who are so filled with the inevitable bad results of climate change that one wonders how they can undertake objective scientific research. And so you can be pretty sure that it will produce the outcomes that they anticipate when they start. So these values are very important. Now let's look at the cup with the same amount of liquid in, but we say the cup is half full. Now what's that got to do with it? Okay, so the question now that I'm going to pose is, are we wrong? Actually, are things better than we admit in our everyday conversation and perception? Indeed, is this the new golden age? Because people have always dreamt about a golden age. They've always seen, they've dreamt, because part of the thinking, and again, it's cup half empty or half full, is that the golden age has passed. It passed in some of the the classical ideas of the Garden of Eden or various other, most religions have their own idea of what was the lost idyll, that things were perfect in the past, and then since then it's been a story of decline. Then people started to dream. There was a famous book by Thomas More in the 17th century. It was first written in Latin, called Utopia, where he projected into the future that the world could actually be better. And he was framing it on the basis of the problems he experienced at the time. And he wasn't free to speak his mind openly because that would have been heresy. So he produced a fictional image of an island, a lost island, where the world was indeed very much better than the world around him. It was, in fact, utopia. So have we arrived at utopia? Because in the past, people said, if you go back 500 years, say, people said, one day we would live in a world where there's enough food to eat, where we would live long lives, where we wouldn't have to work every day. And many of these things you can tick off. You might not think it, but you can. So from the point of view of the past, you might think that we live in utopia. Well, there we are. I don't know what's that. Sorry. I need to go back one. Let's be realistic. It's not the golden age. The question is it better than it's been? Because the facts provide the basis for an optimistic background to new research. And I'm going to take just 6 indicators to demonstrate that. And I think we probably missed out. We don't have another one of these, do we? This is quite hard to control. Well, I think I've jumped a slide, but I wanted to refer to a book that I have recently read, and it's simply called Progress by someone called Norberg, Norberg, and he is arguing, and I'm taking some of these illustrations from his book. For example, one of the indicators are people are living longer today than they have ever lived in the past. In 1900, the average lifespan across the world was 31 years. You all look very young, but I suspect that quite a lot of you would not be here. I wouldn't be here, certainly, today. Even in the period since 2000, life expectancy across the globe has increased by 5 years. That's quite dramatic, even since the year 2000. So people are, on average, living longer today than they did in the past. I don't know. I only want to go back one. Poverty is decreasing. Again, the facts are dramatic. We are aware, partly because of different communications, we are aware of poverty in the world today. But the number of people who suffer from extreme poverty is decreasing. In 1990, not so long ago, it was nearly 2 billion people who lived on $1.25 or less a day. 1990. And each year the figure has come down, as you can see, so that by 2030 it might be down to something like 150, 200,000 million, sorry. It's still a large figure, but it's come down dramatically in that period. All right, we've done the living. Now there's more food as well, because that has always been historically the worst thing that could happen, that people starved. That if their crop failed, they starved, and each year there were famines and many people died. So understandably, in the utopia, people dreamt that one day there would be enough food to eat. There is still not enough food for everybody, but the estimate is that over the past 25 years, an additional 2 billion people have been taken out of a starvation range. Now, why is this? There's a whole number of reasons. The Green Revolution, the use of high-yield seeds have had a major impact. And India and Pakistan, as an example, produce 7 times more wheat than 50 years ago. So in a quite rapid period, in a quite rapid fashion, fewer people are suffering from a lack of food. So that is a very important indicator, surely. Sorry, you must bear with me, this is quite hard. And more people have access to fresh water. That's absolutely crucial. It's not only for drinking purpose, it's the fact that disease was spread through polluted water. 1981, only half the world's population had access to safe water. Now it's 91%. I mean, that is it was always possible if people turn their minds to it. It didn't need advanced research, it needed political will and application and a willingness to share between economies. And the result is dramatic. It won't be good till it's 100%, but it's a sign of significant improvement. And we quite rightly hear a lot about forests being exploited. What we hear much less is that a lot of new forests across the world are being planted. So it's not all bad news. And pollution is at last being controlled. The quantity of oil, we still see some dramatic examples of oil pollution, but once it was quite the norm for ships to spill their surplus waste into the sea and for things to go wrong, that's effectively been cut to 99% since 1970. So you could say people have more food, there are forests being replanted, the oceans are getting cleaner. Right. We can look at those figures and we can argue about them, but I think the trend is unmistakable. And the question that remains is, how will this affect the research agenda? What do we mean by research in the Golden Age? Well, I'm going to conclude with 2 points. The first is a recognition that there will still be problems. There are problems today all around us, and some of those problems are the problems of affluence and not necessarily of shortage. Traffic, for example, is a continuing problem. And there's a number of reasons for this. First of all, the Golden Age is not a finite point. At every point in human history, the Golden Age frontier will move forward. Just as today we're in this privileged position that we can sit in this room and discuss ideas, we will then generate new challenges, new frontiers. Really, this is what researchers do. and that's good. So we can't pretend that, you know, it's like climbing a mountain. You can't pretend that there's a peak, and once you've reached that, you've reached the golden age. All you've reached is a stage along a lengthier journey. So there's always new boundaries to cross. But the problems will be different. So how will it affect the golden age? The problems will be different as new challenges emerge. So how will this be? I'm going to conclude with perhaps a controversial point, but all of this shows that we have been remarkably successful as human beings in developing science and technology. We've had problems and we've solved them. Not all of them, but we've solved many, many problems. So people can eat, they can have fresh water, they live longer, medicine is amazing now. All of these things, quite incredible. And then there's the whole information age and the communication factors. And you think, you know, and people travel to the moon and probably beyond, and there's nothing really that science and technology has not achieved. It is quite incredible. And here we are taking off, you're doing fresh research, and you're pushing back the frontiers all the time. So if we're trying to assess what the human race has achieved, I would say one thing is, it has been remarkably rational, scientific, and done some amazing things. Some of them have not been for the good, but that's the way people use it. But science and technology itself is surely a plus factor. But I wonder in human history if human nature has followed that same path of progress. Are we not still the same species that lived thousands of years ago even? We fight, we're jealous, we try and overcome our neighbors, we're not very nice to each other, we're not very good at cooperating. I mean, I live in Seychelles in the middle of the ocean, and we all know that we mustn't overfish, and if we go on doing that, we won't have fish in the future. And everybody nods, and then you say, well, how are we going to deal with this? Oh, it doesn't really apply to us. You know, it's very, very hard to get agreement. I think human nature is still very basic, whereas human scientists are very advanced. And I think perhaps somewhere between those two lies a new frontier for research. Somehow, I think we have to program ourselves to catch up with the advances in science and our ability to remain on this planet in a peaceful and productive way. So I think we are at the end of this, so I'll leave you with those thoughts, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Hardy, for enlightening us with such interesting and insightful perspectives. We are indeed privileged by your presence with us today. I once again invite Professor Aryaratna Jayamaha to present a token of our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dennis Hardy, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Seychelles. Thank you. The keynote address is to be delivered by none other than Professor Joseph Muller. Professor Muller is from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. Let us listen to the profile of Professor Muller before I invite him to share his wealth of knowledge and vast experiences with the gathering.
Professor Joseph Muller's experience and qualification stretches over a wide area. He has held several positions in business, government, and the academia. In the business sector, Professor Muller has held senior positions in retail, manufacturing, transport, and services. He has undertaken consultancy assignments for governments, including analysis of national economic, environmental, and social policies, executive education, and evaluation of IT strategic plans. Joseph worked as a professor in accounting and finance at the University of Southern Queensland in Australia for 30 years and currently holds adjunct professorships in Wuhan, China, Malang, Indonesia, and he teaches in accounting, auditing, information systems, forensics, and sustainability. His research centers on accounting for sustainable development, technology-enhanced learning, business forensics, and information systems. Professor Mula has undertaken consultancy assignments for large corporations and educational institutions. As a speaker on a range of topics, he is sought after for his knowledge and the ability to communicate complex material to both technical and executive audiences. Joseph holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Government Policy Analysis using long-range econometric environmental computer simulation models, a Master of Philosophy from London, and a Bachelor of Business majoring in accountancy. Professor Mula is a Fellow of CPA Australia and has been a member of it for over 40 years.
And on that note, Professor Mula, the podium is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great honour to be here in the university. I was here 5 years ago, and in fact I came to Colombo in 1951. So you can see my age is very, very showing. On my way as a child to Australia. So it's very nice to be here. The topic I have chosen this morning is understanding fraud, bribery and corruption, Sri Lankan perspective. And you might say, what has this got to do with creativity, innovation and stability? Well, in fact, it has a lot to do with it. Because unless we are creative in what we are doing about bribery and corruption, unless we change our ways and be more innovative, we will not gain any stability in any country whatsoever. So it is an important area. It's an area of study which I have been in the last maybe 10, 15 years. As you heard from the bio that was read, my doctorate is more in environmental and economic stability and government policy analysis in that area when it was not fashionable, way back. Nobody was listening to us in those days, in the 70s. But anyway, everybody's now listening because temperatures are rising, sea levels are rising, and we're feeling the effects. So let me just, as quickly as I can, try to show you some issues here. Here's some global evidence. If you have not been in this area, you might be wondering, what is the situation. So, as you can see, 44% of government organisations globally experienced one instance of economic crime in 2015. And you can see the sorts of areas that is happening. And you can see that it is actually rising. It's not falling, it's rising in most countries. 27% of government organisations surveyed around the world suffered a loss of in excess of $1 million in one incident of fraud. The top 7, asset misappropriation, which I'll talk about later, and that is stealing basically of assets of organisation. Cybercrime, which is now on the increase. It is going up at a very high rate, accounting fraud, human resource fraud. So 60% of all the frauds are committed by public sector employees. So that is a very telling statistic. And I have some information in relation to why that is so. It doesn't seem to want to change. Oh. So here are some reasons why. Fraud has been committed since the dawn of society. You can go back and read some of the scholars way back and you can see this. What is happening, however, is it's being sped up by the paradox, if I could call it that, of the positive things of technology and communications, which in fact are opening up more holes in the wall, as it were, for economic crime to be committed. So any person in the street with a smartphone and a few receivers can actually pick up information as you are using it on your own smartphone. So it is a digital paradox, and it is an enabler, but there are limitations and there are problems associated with it. Sri Lanka, of course, population, this is 2015, 21 million. There are 5 million plus active internet users. Of course, it could be much more now. 23 million mobile connections. So you've got more mobile connections than you have people, which is very common throughout the world. Facebook users, 3.5 million, LinkedIn, and then Instagram in the sort of order that is there. So you can see the use of the technology is increasing quite significantly. The growth in internet and mobile use in Sri Lanka from 2009-2015, mobile broadband connections have doubled each year with an average growth rate of 96.5%, so it's almost double, and fixed internet connections have registered growth of 68%. So you see, as I said, the technology moving. For every 100 Sri Lankans, there are 113 mobile phones and 13 fixed lines. 27.4 million mobile subscriptions in the country as of that date. 4 million fixed and mobile subscribers, more than 5 million active internet users, 24% of the population. And 67 million internet users as of June 2016. So it is pervasive, it is pervasive. In terms of social media, which is also, a bit of a paradox as well, we can see that Facebook and YouTube are the second and fourth traffic receivers in Sri Lanka, with 3 to 3.5 million Facebook account users, which is 16% of the local population. And then we've got a whole lot of companies which are very well known to you all, from Dialogue all the way through to Sri Lankan Airlines, that are on Facebook pushing for your business, on YouTube, and there are, again, a number of very well-known companies. LinkedIn, as I said before, about 688,000, and Instagram about 60,000, which is still growing. Oops, go back one. Fraudulent e-commerce transactions, 2015. Top of the pops is one of the neighbours over there, but closer to us, Indonesia. And I gave a talk about this in Indonesia only a few months ago. And followed by Venezuela, South Africa. Sri Lanka, according to the central bank annual report, IT-related activities have grown significantly at 21%. Compared with just 9.3%. Significant portion of this growth can be credited to e-commerce, they say. Now, of course, as in India and Pakistan and in the Indian subcontinent, credit cards are not a very popular form of payment. And in fact, I believe my understanding is that in Sri Lanka there is not law there in statutes to govern e-commerce, and there is some discussion going on at the moment in relation to it. So we don't know what the fraudulent level of e-commerce is in this country at this stage. Maybe an area for research. You can see the least fraudulent ones, and these are the top 5. Even Australia doesn't rank in the top 5, so there we are. Okay, oops, come back. This is the corruption perception index. So, you know, we have fraud on one side, corruption on the other side. As you see again, Denmark has got one of the highest scores. Australia is at 13. And Sri Lanka is down with China there at 83 out of, I think it's 170 countries. I think that's what it is. But what you see since 2012, this corruption index is declining. In other words, you know, 100 is no corruption and 0 is absolute, complete corruption. It's declining. Reason why? We're not sure. Not sure, but again, we might try to explore that very quickly. In terms of cases of bribery, I won't labour on this. Most of you who live in this wonderful country would know a lot about these, about the Assistant Commissioner of Labour in the public health area, excise officers demanding bribes for, you know, for being able to bring in product into the country. 2015 reported initiating up to 16 proceedings against individuals, and they include cabinet ministers, mayors, parliamentarians and former chairmen. And it's quite interesting to look at this across countries, and it seems to be, and when it comes to corruption, it's of course the most senior people that are committing most of these sort of crimes against our society, but they do cross other areas, and the more organisations that governments control, the more corruption it seems to be. Some breaking news, again, and I won't go through all of this, but state-owned television, there was an issue there in relation to, I think, funding of elections and so on, and using that. Private secretary of the chairman of the local government body, and then there's a more recent one about the director of sport as well. So it does occur here. It definitely does occur here. Some background: prior to 1990, bribery was an offence, punishable under the Penal Code. During the British rule, of course, bribery appeared as a criminal offence in the statute books. 1954, the Bribery Act was passed and enacted to include and accommodate all the scopes in the public sector in terms of bribery. And then the Bribery Commission, 58. Then 1994, they created the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, which is still ongoing. After that, that commission was established. It had quite strong powers to actually investigate as well as bring people to court. Then the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate and inquire into serious acts of fraud, corruption and abuse of power was set up in January 2010 and ended in January 2015, which was quite a long time. And the Anti-Corruption Committee was then established to fight corruption with the government looking for a corruption-free nation. So what are some possible factors? Large amounts of public resources come from natural resources. We heard that this morning. The vested interests and politically connected networks, poorly paid civil servants, low regulatory quality, weak judicial independence. Again, this is quite similar to a number of Asian countries, developing countries as well, and we can see that these are the sort of key possible factors that increase the amount of corruption in the country. Sri Lanka, particularly, there was the execution of even most mundane things or menial tasks, that involve institutions, state institutions, heavily embedded in day-to-day public life in Sri Lanka. The habit of looking for the so-called known person. I don't know what that translates to in Sinhalese or Tamil, but is, when we need something done, we go to somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody in the public sector to try and push it along and cut down the red tape. So we're looking for that high-ranking person to be more successful in getting what we want. Abuse of power for personal gain is visible in many quarters of society. It's not uncommon in the average Sri Lankan's life. So visibility of corruption and bribery is brazen in the selected public domain. Competing for government tenders, registrations of businesses, payment for direct and indirect taxes, customs duties and those things, excise, and dealing with the police and the law enforcement on a day-to-day basis, just to name a few areas where this has occurred. Detection of fraud and corruption in government, again, don't have any particular figures for Sri Lanka, but if you have a look, who detects that globally? Internal audit. Strong controls in terms of the organisation, with an independent internal audit group reporting to a governing board or whatever, seems to pick it up. Tip-offs, of course, suspicious transaction reports, which now we can generate from the technology that we have. Done quite a bit of work in the area of writing programs that will go to look for fraud within transaction systems in organisations, fraud risk management and so on. Law enforcement is quite down, quite low in terms of their ability to actually detect fraud. The large audit firms carrying out audits reduce financial fraud. The evidence seems to say they do, but the report actually highlights the role of government sanctions in assuring the audit quality and have important practice implications. So even within government, the government auditor needs to be very independent, very non-politically aligned, not manipulated by the politics. So we need that sort of oversight. These are sort of the main Sri Lankan laws that deal with fraud, bribery and corruption, from the original Bribery Act in '54 coming through the more recent ones of the Electronic Transactions Act. Again, people in the country are looking for some law as it relates to e-commerce and the fraud and that might go on in that area as well. The Evidence-Based Provisions Act says this about unauthorised access, computer hacking, all those sorts of things are covered within the law here in Sri Lanka. Conspiracy to commit a computer-related offence, they're all described in the Act. Most of the things associated with technology are in fact embedded in legislation. What can Sri Lanka do to fight fraud? I think you do have it, but it needs strengthening. Create a central multidisciplinary agency that will focus on combating and addressing these issues. There's no clear demarcation from looking at the research that's been done of the duties and scope of work between the FCID and the Bribery Commission, and there is some contentious issues there. Enhanced institutional capacity, improving the public service and their skills and abilities, reducing red tape to a minimum. For example, obtaining a warrant for documentation and financial statements takes far too long in terms of the startups area. Streamlining processes of FDIC, informing inland revenue. Again, the demarcation between different agencies is a problem, as it relates particularly here about black money moving on and off the shore, as it were. And the penal code doesn't specifically specify financial crime and corruption in it, and it needs that, and train and build the capacity of forensic investigators, the area that I work in. Happening? No? I'm not sure whether... So, in summary, we can see that fraud and corruption is on the increase, both in value and in incidence. The challenge, of course, for administrators, management, auditors, and external auditors as well, is to minimise the incidence. We need to learn how. We need to improve their ability to become true forensic bloodhounds, as it were. So I think, in fact, the positive out of this, particularly for universities, is to build people who have got these knowledge and skills, because there are career opportunities in this area, and we are lacking people with the ability to actually do it. The Committee of Public Enterprise report I think it was for the period January 2016 to April 2016, they said this: one should accept the inevitable reality that fraud and corruption cannot be eradicated within the prevailing system. However, it is possible to prepare methodologies which enable public enterprises to achieve a higher progress and provide a wider service to the public. So we do acknowledge that it will never be eradicated, but we do need to build the strengths, the skills, the qualifications of people to try and minimise it. Mahatma Gandhi said corruption and hypocrisy ought not to be the inevitable product of democracy. So, even in those days, when the Mahatma was looking at India, I think we can recognise this. And many other people have recognised that it does exist in society, but we need to find ways to minimise it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mullah, for sharing your thought-provoking ideas and nuanced perspectives undoubtedly drawn from your wide range of experiences. And once again, I have the privilege of inviting the Chair of Iprc 2016, Professor Aryaratna Jayamaha, to present a token of our deep appreciation to the keynote speaker, Professor Joseph Mullah. Thank you. The organization of a conference of this scale requires an immense amount of dedication of skilled and committed individuals. And so, I invite Ms. H.N.K. Fernando, the Assistant Registrar of the Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Kelaniya, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning to you all, Venerable Sirs, keynote speaker, Professor Joseph Mullah from University of Southern Queensland, Australia, guest of honor, Professor Dennis Sardi, the Vice Chancellor of University of Seychelles, from Seychelles, special guest of the conference, Senior Professor M.J.S. Vijayaratna Chairman of Research Council, University of Kelaniya, Conference Chair and Dean of Faculty of Graduate Studies, Professor Ariyaratna Jayamaha, Director of CDC and Chief Editor of the conference, Professor PMC Tilakaratna, professors and other directors, librarian, head of the departments and other academic staff, administrative staff and the other non-academic staff members, distinguished delegates, dear presenters, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the closure of the 17th Conference on Postgraduate Research, Iprc 2016, I deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped making this event such a resounding success. I would like to express our profound gratitude to our Vice Chancellor of University of Kelaniya, Senior Professor Sunanda Madduma Bandara, for his presence in this morning and as the chief guest and sharing his valued thoughts at this inauguration ceremony. Also, I must mention that he has made a remarkable contribution to enhance the research culture in this university. I would like to emphasize that this is the second time we are conducting an international level conference, and I am very glad that it's got a huge response. We are delighted to have amongst us Professor Joseph Mula, our keynote speaker from Australia. I'd like to thank him for sharing his valuable time and knowledge with us. His presence has been a source of guidance and inspiration for us. Also, I humbly thank Professor Dennis Hardy, who is present here as our guest of honor, for his impressive speech and valuable time shared with us. I'm thankful to Senior Professor M.J.S. Wijeratna, the Chairman of Research Council, University of Kelaniya, for his presence and addressing the gathering. His effort toward maintaining the quality of research in University of Kelaniya and his continuous support towards researchers has been a strong patronage for our researchers at the University of Kelaniya. The successful culmination of this conference owes much to the guidance and support of Professor Ariyaratna Jayamaha, the Conference Chair and Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Kelaniya. And I thank our Chief Editor, Director of Center of Distance and Continuing Education, Professor PMC Tilakaratna, for his valuable service, and the editorial board, reviewers, for continuous service towards this conference. I also thank all the distinguished invitees present here for accepting our invitations. Also, my sincere thanks to Professor M.H. Aberatna, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, and Professor Lakshman Senivratna, Dean, Faculty of Humanities, for providing session venues for the conference and their support towards this conference. And I thank Dean, Faculty of Science, Professor Kapila Senivratna, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, Professor Nilanthi De Silva, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Professor D.M. Semsingha, Dean of Computing and Technology, Dr. Gamini Wijeratna, for their continuous support towards IPRC 2016. I am grateful to our registrar, Abersa, and our librarian who supported us at various stages of organizing this event. Also, my sincere thanks to the coordinators from all faculties, Professor Upali Hettiarachchi from Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Prabha Manuratna from Faculty of Humanities, Dr. Vasanthi Madurapperuma from Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies, Dr. Dimuthu Wijeratna from Faculty of Science, Dr. Shiromi Pereira from Faculty of Medicine, and Dr. S.R. Lienage from Faculty of Computer and Technology, who were continuously dedicated to make this conference a success. During the conference, we have a diversity of academic sessions going on. I thank in advance to all the session chairs, co-chairs, and the rapporteurs who will be working in the sessions and providing guidance to the presenters. Also, there were a few people always there with us, continuously supporting. Professor Upali Hettiarachchi for organizing session venues on behalf of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Dr. Prabha Manuratna providing guidance for preparation of publications, Mr. Nilantha Ramanayaka for overall support by training and coordinating volunteers apart from doing overall designing tasks for the event, I thank all the people who have participated overwhelmingly and making the event a success. Last but not least, I thank the temporary academic staff of Faculty of Commerce and Management Studies and Faculty of Social Sciences who volunteered to organize the event. All the administrative staff who gave their support in various ways, Ms. Nimal Herath, Financial Coordinator for Iprc and the Deputy Bursar for Faculty of Graduate Studies, and Mr. DDM Dolavatta, who was the Computer System Administrator for the conference, the staff at the Faculty of Graduate Studies, all the other members from technical committees and supporting staff, and the volunteer team. They were the strength to the success of this event. Once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation and enjoy the academic sessions of IPRC 2016. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. We now come to the close of the inaugural ceremony. Dignitaries, distinguished guests, presenters, and members of the academic and non-academic staff, thank you for your gracious presence at the inaugural ceremony of the International Postgraduate Research Conference, IPRC 2016, organized by the Faculty of Graduate Studies, University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. We look forward to the next 2 days of exploring dynamic collaborations, creativity, innovation, and stability. In closing, I wish to extend an invitation to all those gathered to join us for refreshments at the first floor of the K1 building, also known as Kelaniya Hall, after which the parallel sessions will take place in K3. Members of the organizing committee will assist you with directions to the venue. In closing, shall we all rise for the national anthem?